Alright guys, day 1, week 19. Aaron bought 5/8 of a pound of turkey, a half pound of ham, 3/8 pounds of roast beef to make sandwiches for a picnic. How much sandwich meat did she purchase? So this is an all together. The only fraction that I need to change is my 1/2, and if I multiply 4 over 4, that brings me to a least common denominator of 8. So 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 3 is 12 over 8. I have to reduce that. That's way too big in proper fraction. 8 divided into 12 is 1. 4 over 8 is my fraction. I have to reduce that again, and that is 1/2. For number 2, you can have any equivalent fractions here. Mine are just some examples. So if you have something different, it does not make yours wrong. Just make sure you multiply it or divide it correctly. All right, complete the model to show the product of 1/2 times 3/4. Well, the first thing I did was split this into eighths because when I noticed is I'm going to get a denominator of 8. Okay, I also shaded in 3/4 and then I shaded in 1/2. Okay, so I had my columns and then I had my rows. So I shaded in 1/2 and then I also shaded in 3/4. And once I did that, what do I recognize? I recognize that my overlap fell on 3 pieces. So 1, 2, 3. So that gives me 3/8, 3 out of 8 pieces total. So there's my product, 3/8. All right, I have subtracting here. 5.5 minus 2 and 2/3. So I rewrote it finding a least common denominator. My least common denominator is 6. So that gave me 5 and 3/6 because 2 times 3 is 6 and 3 times 1 is 3. I had to multiply this by 2 over 2, so that gave me 2 and 4/6. When I went to subtract, I couldn't, so I had to rename. I scratch out the 5 and I rename 5 as 4 and 6/6. Now I use a 6 because this is the common denominator here. So now I can add 6/6 plus my fraction here, 3/6, that gives me 9/6. So I have 4 and 9/6 minus 2 and 4/6. I subtract, and that gives me 2 and 5/6. Okay, list the first 5 multiples. For 4, I got 8, 12, 16, and 20. And for 10, I have 20, 30, 40, and 50. What are my common multiples for 4 and 10? 20. And my least common multiple would be 20 again. Write 8 and 75/100ths as a mixed number, so it will be 8 and 3/4, and a good way to check that is just to divide 3 by 4. If I divide 3 by 4, I get 75/100ths. Okay, so that's how I have my 75/100ths here. Write 4/5 as a decimal. Well, to do that, I have to make this into tenths because whenever I'm working with decimals, I'm using tenths. So what times 5 is 10? Well, it's 2. So whatever I do to the bottom, I also have to do to the top. So I multiply 4/5 times 2 over 2, and that gives me 8/10. So now I can write this as a decimal. 8/10 would also look like this, 8/10, 8 in the 10th place. Okay? Day 2, number 2. This one we have not been taught yet. This is coming tomorrow, Thursday, in class if you're watching this early. Marcia makes hair bows and donates money. She makes to the Red Cross. Each bow takes 1/3 of a yard of ribbon. How many bows can she make from 6 yards of ribbon? Well, before you learn this formula of keep, change, flip, let's look at how I can make it into a bar, okay? I know that I have 6 total yards. I did that separate. I have 6 total yards of ribbon, okay? So if I am looking at, I did my bar wrong. I did it, I flipped it. Sorry, don't look at that. Okay, it's gonna take me too long to redo the bar, but if I had 6 total yards and each one was cut into thirds, each yard was cut into thirds, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each one of these are cut into thirds, so that would give me 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I had one box too many. That would give me 18. Okay, so that would give me 18. Okay, so I did this in thirds thinking, okay, let's do this in thirds. But if I have 6 and I break each one up into 6, each one of these would have 3 in them. So then what would a third of that be? It would look like this. So that's why I had only 3 boxes before, guys. So here's 2/3, and then here's 3/3. Okay, because I had to make an equivalent fraction. So my first bar only showed the equivalent fraction, so that might be a little bit confusing if you're not sure. So I split up my whole ribbon. I had 6 yards. How much would be inside of each 6 of it? It would be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Well, let's do it by thirds. So I would need 2 of those. So 6 would be in a third, 12 would be in 2/3, and 18 would be in 3/3. So that means I could get 18 bows. Well, another way to do that is to learn the formula, and that is just to divide 6 by 1/3. Well, I'm going to do the reciprocal as I talked to you guys before. I never have to divide if I don't want to. I can just do a reciprocal. So I'm going to take 6 over 1. I'm going to change my sign to multiply, and then I'm going to do the reciprocal of 1/3. So I'm going to flip this fraction to 3 over 1. Now I'm just going to multiply, and as I multiply, I go straight across. So 6 times 3 is 18. 1 times 1 is 1. So that's 18 over 1, or 18 bows. And then I can also see that in my bar as well. Sorry about having to erase that other bar, but I had already made it into thirds, and I think that this is better for you to be able to see how that was broken up into thirds by starting with 6, by starting as 1, 6. Okay, so let's move on. Compare using greater than, less than to prove your answer. Well, I just made equivalent fractions. You guys may have learned in 4th grade to just cross multiply. 8 times 5 is 40, and 6 times 7 is 42. Which number is larger? 42. So this fraction over here would be eaten by the sign. So I would make 5/6 less than 7/8. Okay, which expression could be used to find the answer? One thing that I noticed is this had a 9 for each one. Change it to a 6, and you can already see that I have this formula up here, or this expression up here, as 6 divided by 1/3. Okay, circle the numbers that are divisible by 3. Remember, if these numbers add up and they are a multiple of 3, once you add all the digits together, then they're divisible by 3. 6 plus 9 is 15, so that's divisible. 7 plus 5 is 12. 7, 1, and 3 are 11, so not divisible. 5, 15, 2, 5, and 8 is 15. 5 and 4 is 9, so that's divisible. 5 plus 5 plus 2 is 12. 6 plus 6 is 12. 6, 7, and 2 is 15, and 7, 1, and 3 are 11. Okay? So you can see all of those. Sorry that I didn't have that in the screen. All right, next day. What is the multiplication problem? Well, I have 4 here, so that lets me know my denominator is 4, and I kept 2, or I shaded in 2 whole rows, 2 columns, so that would be 2/4, or you could write it over here like this. Okay, and then I had 1, 2, 3 here, but I shaded in 1 all the way across, so 1's my denominator and 3 is my, 1 is my numerator, 3 is my denominator, or you could write it like this: 1/3 times 2/4, or 2/4 times 1/3. Okay, create a model below to show the product of 3/5 times 10. Well, I created a model of 10. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I need 3/5. So I split this into fifths. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. Well, I'm going to shade in 3. So 1, 2, 3. How many do I have? I have 6. So 6 is 3/5 times 10. Okay, think of 1/5 times 10. How many would that be? So if I shaded in 1, it would be 2. So 3 of those, 2, 4, 6, would give me 6. Mrs. O'Brien is planting her spring garden. She decides to use 3/4 of the garden's area for peppers. Her garden measures 8 feet by 6 feet. Below is a model of her garden. How many square feet are being used for peppers? Okay, well, remember the formula for area is area equals length times width, right? but I'm only using 3 of these 4 boxes. So how much would each one of these boxes be if this total width is 8? Okay, so if this entire width right here is 8, and I'm only using 3 of these, then how much would each one of the boxes be? Well, this is 2, 4, 6, and that would be 8, but I'm only using 3, so 2, 4, 6. So I'm going to have 6 as this length here, and then this length doesn't change. It was already a 6. Okay, so now let's plug in the area for formula. Area equals length times width. Well, 6 times 6 equals 36. So below is a model. How many square feet are going to be used? For peppers, it would be 36 square feet. Okay? How would you solve this problem just using numbers? Well, the first thing I could do is multiply my fraction times my area, which was 3/4 times 8. That would get me 6. And then outside, I would have times my width. So 6 times 6 gives me 36 square feet. Write 2 equivalent fractions for 10/15. I could divide by 5 and I get 2/3. Multiply by 2 and I get 20/30. Okay, 2/3 I multiply by 2 over 2 and I get 4/6. Or go back and look and multiply it by 5, 10/15. Notice that all of these fractions are equivalent to each other. Even 4/6 is equivalent to 10/15. Okay. Marcus' dad is going to order 4 pizzas for his birthday. Each pizza is cut into eighths, so I made 4 pizzas and I cut them into eighths. 10 people will be at the party. This includes Marcus and his dad. Will there be enough slices for each person to have 3? Well, if I have 10 people times 3, then that means I need 30 slices of pizza. So I made 4 pizzas, split each one into 8, and that gave me 32 slices. So will there be enough for each person to have 3? Yes, there will be. And I proved it with my model. All right, this is adding. I found a common denominator. My least common denominator would be 12 here. So I rewrote my fractions and added, and I got 8 and 11/12. Okay, I didn't have to do any of that work that I did up there because I'd already did it, so I don't have to do it down here. The only thing that I have to do is rewrite my new fractions, which would be 6 and 2/12 minus 2 and 9/12. I have to rename because I can't take 9 from 2. So this becomes 5 and 12/12. 12/12 plus 2/12 gives me 14/12, so I rewrite it as 5 and 14/12 minus 2 and 9/12. That gives me 3 and 5/12, and that cannot be reduced. Last one. Sandy lives 6 miles from the mall. When she is 2/3 of the way from the mall, she stops to pick up some books from the library. How many more miles does she need to travel to arrive at the mall? Well, she stopped 4 miles through because 2/3 of 6 equals 4 miles. So that's where she stopped. So how much does she have to go? Well, now I have to subtract my total, my beginning 6, minus the 4 that I stopped. So 6 minus 4. So she has 2 more miles to travel. Have a good evening.